My name is Megan Carter. I'm 35 years old, a trauma surgeon at Maple Ridge Regional Hospital in Kentucky. And my hands don't shake when a patient is bleeding out under bright operating lights. But on October 18th, at 7:41 p.m., in a ballroom full of hospital donors, board members, physicians, nurses, and local officials, my former mother-in-law tried to cut me open without ever touching a scalpel. She used one sentence. Brenda Lawson walked toward me holding a champagne flute, wearing pearls, red lipstick, and the same soft smile she used at church when she wanted people to believe she was kind. Then she said, loud enough for half the room to hear, "My son was right to leave you, Megan. Now he has a real family and a child with your former best friend." The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of people deciding whether to look away. A nurse beside the dessert table lowered her eyes. One of the cardiologists pretended to check his phone. A board member's wife went still with her hand halfway to her mouth. And I just looked at Brenda. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't defend myself. I only asked her one question. "Are you sure you want to say that in front of witnesses?" Brenda smiled wider, because she thought I was still the same woman who had stayed quiet for 3 years, while her family dragged my name through every dinner table, every church hallway, every hospital fundraiser in Maple Ridge. She didn't know that 7 minutes later, my attorney would walk through the doors, carrying a navy folder with 3 filed complaints, 6 notarized statements, and 1 set of medical records that would change everything she thought she knew. That was Brenda's first mistake, and it was not her last. Welcome back to Raw Drama Stories. If you've ever stayed silent because you thought the truth would eventually defend itself, this story is for you. Before I continue, take a second to like this video and subscribe. And tell me in the comments what you would have done if someone humiliated you in front of the people who controlled your career. Now let me take you back. Because Brenda Lawson did not destroy my reputation in one night. She did it slowly, carefully, with a smile. I met Ryan Lawson when I was 27 and finishing my surgical residency in Lexington. He was 31, a pharmaceutical sales rep with perfect teeth, expensive shoes, and the kind of confidence that made people forgive him before he ever apologized. Ryan knew how to enter a room. He remembered names. He held doors open. He laughed at the right time. He called waitresses ma'am and older men sir. He brought flowers to my apartment after my 28-hour shifts and told me he admired how hard I worked. At the time, that felt like love. Now I understand that some men admire strength only until it stops serving them. Ryan was born and raised in Maple Ridge. His mother, Brenda, had worked for 22 years as the administrative coordinator for a private orthopedic practice before retiring early and becoming, in her own words, very involved in the community. Very involved meant she knew everyone. The mayor's wife, the senior pastor, the hospital board chair's sister, the woman who ran the charity auction, the woman who ran the women's ministry, the woman who knew which marriages were struggling before the couples admitted it to themselves. Brenda did not gossip. She worried. That was her talent. She could poison a person's name and make it sound like prayer. When Ryan first introduced me to her, she hugged me for too long and said, "A surgeon? My goodness. I hope you still have time to be a wife." I laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Ryan and I got married 2 years later at St. Matthew's Chapel, A white brick church with blue stained glass windows and oak pews that smelled like lemon polish. I wore a simple satin dress with sleeves because I had scars on my arms from years of hospital work and didn't feel like answering questions. Ryan cried when I walked down the aisle. At least, I thought he did. Brenda sat in the front row, wearing pale lavender and dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief, even though she had spent the entire rehearsal dinner reminding me that Lawson women traditionally stayed home after the first baby. "We believe children need their mother present," she said, cutting into her salmon like she was making a legal point. I smiled politely. "I believe children need parents who respect each other." Ryan squeezed my knee under the table. Not lovingly. Warningly. That was the first time I noticed it. But I ignored it. Because every family has sharp edges at the beginning. Because I was tired. Because I was in love. Because women like me are very good at performing calm until calm becomes a prison. For the first year, our marriage looked beautiful from the outside. We bought a brick house on Willow Bend Drive, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, with a narrow backyard and a maple tree Ryan said would be perfect for a swing someday. I worked at Maple Ridge Regional. Ryan traveled across Western Kentucky for work. Brenda came over every Sunday after church with casseroles I never asked for and opinions nobody invited. She opened cabinets. She rearranged drawers. She folded Ryan's laundry and left mine in the basket. Once, I came home after a 16-hour emergency shift and found her standing in my kitchen holding my medical conference badge between 2 fingers. "San Diego?" she asked. "Another trip?" "It's a surgical trauma conference." She smiled. "Of course. I just hope Ryan doesn't get lonely with all your ambition." I took the badge from her hand. Ryan knew my job before he married me. Brenda tilted her head. "Yes," she said softly. "Men think they know what they can live with." I should have heard the threat in that sentence. Instead, I went upstairs, showered, and slept for 4 hours before being called back to the hospital for a bowel obstruction. That was my life. Work, home, apologize for working, repeat. After 2 years of marriage, people started asking about children. At first, it was normal. Aunt Linda at Thanksgiving, one of Ryan's cousins at a baby shower, a nurse from pediatrics who meant no harm. Then Brenda made it her hobby. She brought it up at Sunday dinners, in grocery store aisles, beside me at church, once even in front of a patient's family at a hospital Christmas fundraiser. "No babies yet," she said with a sigh, touching my arm. "We're praying." I hated the way she said "we," like my body was a town concern. Ryan and I had been trying quietly for almost a year by then. I tracked dates on an app. I took prenatal vitamins. I cut back caffeine. I scheduled my surgeries carefully when I could, as if discipline could bargain with biology. Every negative test felt like a small private funeral, and Ryan became harder to reach. At first, he told me not to worry. Then he told me to stop obsessing. Then, one night, after I suggested we both get tested, he slammed a cabinet so hard one of the mugs inside cracked against another. "I'm not doing that," he said. I stood in the kitchen, still wearing scrubs from a double shift, my hair damp from the rain. "It's just basic testing, Ryan." He turned on me. "No, you're the doctor. You love turning everything into a diagnosis, but I'm not letting you make me feel defective." That word stayed in the room after he left. Defective. I had never used it. He had. 2 weeks later, I went to my own appointment alone at a women's health clinic in Lexington. Blood work, ultrasound, hormone panels, the whole uncomfortable routine. My results were normal. Not perfect. Nobody's body is perfect. But there was no medical reason I couldn't have children. I remember sitting in my car afterward, holding the manila envelope against the steering wheel. It was raining lightly, tapping the windshield in tiny silver lines. I thought I would feel relieved. I didn't. Because the results answered one question and opened another. If it wasn't me, why was Ryan so angry? When I told him my results were normal, he barely looked up from his phone. "That's good," he said. "That means we should test you next." His face changed. Not dramatically. Ryan was too controlled for that. But something went flat behind his eyes. "No." "Ryan," I said. "No, Megan. We're married." And I said no. Then he stood up, grabbed his keys, and left the house. He came back after midnight smelling like bourbon and winter air. He slept in the guest room. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened. And because I had a 6 a.m. surgical consult, I let him. That was how the silence started. Not with one big betrayal, with exhaustion, with shifts, with swallowed questions, busy saving strangers to keep investigating him. By the 3rd year of our marriage, Brenda had changed her tone in public. She no longer said, "We're praying." She said, "Poor Ryan." At church coffee hour, I heard it behind me. At the hospital cafeteria, I saw people stop talking when I approached. At a local restaurant called the Copper Kettle, where Ryan and I used to go for anniversary dinners, the owner's wife touched my hand and said, "You know, adoption is beautiful too." I had not told her anything. That was when I understood. Ryan had told Brenda. Brenda had told everyone else, but not the truth. A version. A careful version. The kind where Ryan was patient and wounded. The kind where I was brilliant but cold. The kind where my career had hollowed me out somehow. The kind where my body had failed him and my pride refused to admit it. I asked Ryan about it one night while he was packing for a sales trip to Bowling Green. "Did you tell your mother I can't have children?" He zipped his garment bag slowly. "I told her we were struggling." "That's not what I asked." He looked at me then, and for the first time, he did not bother pretending to be kind. "What do you want me to say, Megan? People ask questions. They feel bad for me." "For you?" His jaw tightened. "You're never home. You don't make space for a family. Maybe your body knows that." I remember the sound of the zipper. Sharp. Final. Like a small door closing. I should have left then. But grief makes smart women negotiate with cruel facts. And I was grieving a child who didn't exist yet. A marriage I thought could be repaired. A version of Ryan I had invented and kept trying to find under the real one. Then came Ashley Miller. Ashley had been my best friend since college. We met in organic chemistry at the University of Kentucky when she dropped a stack of flashcards under my desk and whispered, "If I fail this class, tell my mother I died bravely." She was funny, warm, dramatic in a harmless way. The kind of woman who remembered birthdays and sent voice memos instead of texts. She became a labor and delivery nurse at Maple Ridge Regional, and for years, she was the person I called when life hurt too much to carry alone. She knew everything. She knew Ryan refused testing. She knew Brenda was spreading rumors. She knew I cried in my pantry one Thanksgiving because Brenda had brought a baby blanket, just in case God finally softened my priorities. Ashley came over that night with takeout and sat on my kitchen floor beside me. "You deserve better than this," she said. I believed her. That was another mistake. When my marriage finally ended, it happened quietly. No screaming, no thrown plates, no dramatic confession. Ryan came home on a Tuesday in March, set his wedding ring on the kitchen counter and said, "I can't do this anymore." I looked at the ring, then at him. "Do what?" "Live like this," he said, "with someone who cares more about the hospital than her own family." There it was, the line Brenda had been sharpening for years. I didn't beg. I was too tired. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Ryan kept his truck, his investment account, and half the furniture his mother insisted had been family pieces, even though I had receipts showing I bought 2 of them. I kept the house on Willow Bend Drive because I paid the down payment, most of the mortgage, and every property tax bill from my surgical salary. Ryan didn't fight me on it. At the time, I thought that meant he was being decent. Later, I realized he just wanted out fast. 3 months after the divorce, Ashley stopped answering my calls. 2 months after that, I saw a photo on Facebook. Ryan and Ashley at Lake Cumberland. His arm around her waist, her hand on his chest. Brenda commented beneath it, "God restores what was stolen." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I closed my laptop and went to work. Because that was what I did. I worked. I repaired ruptured spleens and removed tumors, and stood in operating rooms at 2 a.m. while people prayed outside the doors. I saved other people's families, while mine was being rewritten without me. Then Ashley announced she was pregnant. Brenda acted like someone had handed her a crown. She posted ultrasound photos. She threw a blue and white baby shower at the church fellowship hall. She told people Ryan had finally found real happiness. And Maple Ridge did what small towns do. It accepted the easiest story. Ryan was the good man who had escaped a cold, career-obsessed wife. Ashley was the gentle woman who gave him the family he deserved. Brenda was the proud grandmother. And I was the cautionary tale. The surgeon with steady hands and an empty house. I tried to ignore it. I told myself reputation should not matter when you know the truth. But reputation does matter, especially when your promotion depends on people who listen to whispers. In January, the position for head of surgical services opened at Maple Ridge Regional. I had worked toward it for 8 years. I had reduced post-op complications by 18%. I had rebuilt the trauma response schedule after 2 senior surgeons retired. I had trained residents, covered holiday shifts, and slept on a vinyl couch in the on-call room more times than I could count. Even Dr. Samuel Reed, the outgoing department head, told me, "Megan, it should be yours." But at the board review, something felt wrong. 3 men and 2 women sat across from me in conference room B with bottled waters, printed packets, and faces too polite to trust. The board chair, Franklin Moore, cleared his throat. "Dr. Carter, your clinical record is excellent." "Thank you." "No one is questioning your skill." That was when I knew something bad was coming. He folded his hands. "However, there are concerns about leadership stability." I looked at him. Based on what? A woman named Patricia Voss, who had never once observed me in surgery, glanced down at her notes. "Your recent personal challenges have been very public." My recent personal challenges. That was what they called a rumor when they wanted it to sound professional. I sat perfectly still. My divorce has no bearing on my ability to lead a surgical department. Franklin smiled in the way powerful people smile when they have already decided not to hear you. Of course, but perception matters. There it was. Perception. Not performance. Not patient outcomes. Not skill. Perception. 3 weeks later, they gave the position to Dr. Nathan Price, a competent surgeon with less experience, fewer hours, and a wife who baked cookies for donor events. I congratulated him. I shook his hand. Then I went into the women's restroom on the 3rd floor, locked myself in a stall, and pressed my fist against my mouth until the sound inside me died before it could come out. That was the day my silence stopped feeling noble. It started feeling like a cage. And cages do not open because you wait politely. They open because you find the key. Mine came in a plain white envelope from a private clinic in Louisville. The return address read, Crestline Reproductive Medicine. And when I saw Ryan Lawson's name on the first page, I finally understood why he had been so afraid of one simple test. The envelope did not arrive by accident. 3 weeks before that hospital charity event, I had driven to Louisville after a night shift, still wearing the compression socks I used for long surgeries. I told myself I was only going because I needed closure. That was partly true. But the deeper truth was uglier. I had started doubting my own memory. Ryan had spent years telling me I was too intense, too suspicious, too clinical, too eager to turn pain into a diagnosis. Brenda had spent years telling everyone else I was broken. Ashley had smiled in my kitchen while quietly stepping into the life I was losing. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, I had begun wondering whether maybe I had missed something. That is how lies work when they are repeated long enough. They do not just convince other people. They start tapping on the inside of your own skull. Crestline Reproductive Medicine sat on the 4th floor of a glass office building beside a dental surgery center and a boutique dermatology clinic. Everything smelled like lemon cleaner and coffee. The receptionist had kind eyes and a voice trained to reveal nothing. I'm Dr. Megan Carter, I said, sliding my ID across the counter. I'm requesting documentation related to my former husband's medical release. She looked down at the paperwork I had brought. The release was old. Ryan had signed it during the 2nd year of our marriage, back when I had scheduled fertility appointments for both of us and still believed he planned to show up. He had signed 3 forms at our kitchen island while barely reading them, irritated that I had put them in front of him during a basketball game. One of those forms authorized records to be shared with me as his spouse. He probably forgot it existed. I had not. The receptionist disappeared behind a frosted glass door. I sat in the waiting room with my coat folded across my lap and watched a couple whisper together near the window. The woman had her hand on her stomach. The man had his arm around her shoulders. I looked away. 10 minutes later, an office manager named Elaine Porter came out with a careful expression and asked me to step into a private room. Private rooms are never good. They are where people put the truth before handing it to you. Elaine sat across from me and opened a file. Dr. Carter, these records are from May of 2021. Your former husband completed testing here. He also attended a consultation with Dr. Feldman. My chest felt strangely hollow. Did he receive the results? Yes, she said. He signed the acknowledgement. She turned the page around. There it was. Ryan Lawson's signature. Black ink. Confident slant. Same sharp R he used on Christmas cards and mortgage papers. Below it, in clinical language stripped of mercy, was the truth. Severe male factor infertility. Extremely low sperm count. Natural conception highly unlikely without intervention. I read the words once, then again, then a third time, because my brain refused to hold them. Ryan had known. He had known before Brenda started pitying him in public. He had known before he let people look at me like I was a locked door his family could not open. He had known when he sat across from me at dinner and said, "Maybe my body understood I was not meant to be a mother." I did not cry in Elaine Porter's office. I folded my hands in my lap and asked for certified copies. Elaine watched me for a moment. Then she said quietly, "I'm sorry." People think apologies from strangers do not matter. They do. Sometimes they are the first clean sound you hear after years of noise. I left Crestline with a sealed envelope, a flash drive, and a receipt for $37.50. I put all three into the passenger seat of my car and sat in the parking garage for 17 minutes without turning on the engine. The whole time, one thought kept repeating. He made me carry his shame. Then he let his mother call it mine. That was the moment I stopped being sad. Not angry. Not yet. Clear. There is a difference. That night, I called Claire Bennett, a medical malpractice and civil litigation attorney in Lexington. Claire was 42, blunt, brilliant, and one of the few women I knew who could make silence feel like a weapon. We met the next morning at 8:15 in her office above a title company on Main Street. She wore a charcoal suit, no jewelry except a watch, and she listened without interrupting while I laid everything on her conference table. My fertility records, Ryan's records, screenshots of Brenda's Facebook comments, text messages from former friends saying they were sorry I couldn't give Ryan what he needed. A printed email from Franklin Moore discussing public perception during the head of surgery selection process. A copy of the board minutes from January. A photo of Ashley's baby shower invitation where Brenda had written, "At last, our family is whole." Claire read everything slowly. Then she leaned back and said, "How long have you let them say this?" 3 years. Publicly? Yes. At your workplace? Yes. With professional consequences? I thought of conference room B, Franklin's folded hands, Patricia's polite smile. Yes. Claire closed the folder. Then we are not asking them to stop, Megan. We are making them prove it. That sentence did something to me. It moved air into a place in my chest that had been collapsed for years. Over the next 2 weeks, Claire built the case with the precision of a surgeon preparing for a complicated repair. She subpoenaed internal hospital communications. She interviewed 2 nurses who had heard Brenda insult me near the maternity ward. She requested written statements from Dr. Samuel Reed and 3 staff members who knew my promotion had been expected. One of them, Theo Grant, a charge nurse in the ER, said, "Everybody knew she earned that position." Everybody also knew the board got nervous after Mrs. Lawson kept running her mouth. Claire smiled when she read that. Useful man. I kept everything in a navy binder with silver tabs. Medical records, defamation evidence, professional damages, witness statements, financial impact. Every tab had dates, names, times. My life reduced to proof. But proof was better than pleading. Meanwhile, Ryan and Ashley were living like people who believed the story had already been settled. Brenda posted a photo of herself holding the baby in a blue blanket outside St. Matthew's Chapel. Her caption read, "God restores what was taken." I stared at those 5 words for a long time. Then I printed them and placed the page behind the tab labeled Public Statements. That was how I survived those weeks. I stopped reacting. I started filing. On October 18th, Maple Ridge Regional hosted its annual charity gala in the East Ballroom. Black tablecloths, white roses, silent auction baskets, a string quartet playing near the donor wall. Everyone who mattered to the hospital was there. So was Brenda. So was Ryan. So was Ashley, wearing a navy dress and holding the baby like a shield. Claire had warned me not to engage unless they approached me first. "They will," she said. "People who build lies need an audience." She was right. At 7:41 p.m., Brenda crossed the room. At 7:42, she humiliated me. At 7:43, I asked if she was sure she wanted witnesses. And at 7:48, the ballroom doors opened. Claire Bennett walked in, carrying the navy binder. Ryan saw her before Brenda did. And all the color drained from his face. Claire did not rush. That was the first thing everyone noticed. She walked across that ballroom in low black heels, past the silent auction table, past the donors holding champagne, past the hospital board members who had spent months pretending rumors were the same thing as facts. Her face was calm. Her hands were empty, except for the navy binder. And somehow, that made her more frightening. Brenda turned just enough to see who had entered, but she didn't recognize Claire at first. She was still smiling, still standing in the glow of what she thought was my humiliation. Ryan recognized her immediately. I watched it happen. His eyes moved from Claire's face to the binder in her hand, and then to me. For the first time in 3 years, Ryan Lawson looked at me like he wasn't sure what I knew. Ashley noticed his expression and tightened both arms around the baby. The child made a small, fussy sound against her shoulder, and Ashley bounced him gently, but her eyes were fixed on Ryan. That was the thing about lies. They require everyone involved to trust that nobody kept a receipt. I had kept all of them. Claire reached the table where Franklin Moore and the other board members were seated. Their name cards were lined up neatly in front of them, gold lettering on cream paper. Franklin had been laughing with the donor 15 seconds earlier. Now he looked like a man who had heard a locked door open behind him. "Mr. Moore," Claire said, laying the binder on the table. "I'm Claire Bennett, counsel for Dr. Megan Carter." Franklin straightened. "This is a private hospital event." Claire gave him a small smile. "Then it's fortunate your board members are already assembled." Brenda let out a sharp little laugh. "Oh, please. Megan, what is this? Some kind of performance?" I looked at her. "No, Brenda." Claire opened the binder and removed 3 stapled documents. The sound of paper sliding against paper was strangely loud in that room. "This is notice of a civil action for defamation," Claire said, placing the first packet in front of Franklin. "This is a claim for professional damages related to loss of promotion and reputational harm." She set down the second. "And this is a formal preservation demand for all communications regarding Dr. Carter's candidacy for head of surgical services." Patricia Voss went pale. Franklin stared down at the papers without touching them. A few feet away, Brenda's smile finally twitched. "Defamation?" she said. "For telling the truth?" Claire turned to her. I had watched Claire cross-examine people in deposition prep. She had a way of becoming very still before she struck, like all the air in the room belonged to her, and she was deciding when to let others breathe. "That's excellent, Mrs. Lawson," Claire said. "If your defense is truth, then you'll have the opportunity to prove it in court." Brenda lifted her chin. "I don't need to prove what everyone knows." "That is not how court works." A few people near the bar shifted uncomfortably. Someone whispered my name. Dr. Samuel Reed, standing beside the podium with his hands folded, looked directly at me and gave the smallest nod. That nod steadied me more than he could have known. Ryan took one step forward. "Mom?" he said quietly. Brenda ignored him. "No, Ryan. I am tired of this woman acting like a victim. She chose her career. She chose cold operating rooms over a family. My son suffered for years because she couldn't give him children, and now she wants money because people finally know it?" The room went silent again. But this time, the silence had changed. It was no longer people looking away. It was people listening. Claire reached into the binder and removed a sealed envelope. Ryan's face lost the last of its color. "Don't," he said. It was barely a word, but I heard it. So did Ashley. Her head snapped toward him. "What do you mean, don't?" Brenda turned too, annoyed now, embarrassed that her son had interrupted her grand performance. "Ryan, stop looking like that." He swallowed. "Mom." Claire did not open the envelope. Not there. She didn't need to. She simply held it between two fingers and said, "This matter involves several false public statements concerning Dr. Carter's private medical status. It also involves evidence that those statements were made with knowledge, reckless disregard, or both." Brenda's mouth opened, then closed. For 1 second, I saw confusion pass over her face. Real confusion. Because Brenda had never imagined Ryan might have lied to her too. That was the second crack. Franklin finally touched the documents. He flipped the first page, then stopped when he saw the exhibits listed. Exhibit A, Public Social Media Statements. Exhibit B, Witness Affidavits. Exhibit C, Hospital Board Communications. Exhibit D, Medical Documentation. His eyes froze on the last line. "Medical documentation?" he asked. Claire looked at him. "Yes?" Ryan backed away half a step. Ashley was breathing faster now. "Ryan," she whispered. "What is she talking about?" Ryan didn't answer. That was answer enough. Brenda looked between them, her confidence draining into panic. "This is disgusting," she said, but her voice had lost its polish. "You can't wave private things around at a charity dinner." I almost laughed. After 3 years of her discussing my body in churches, restaurants, hospital hallways, baby showers, and Facebook comments, suddenly privacy mattered. Claire closed the binder. "We're not trying the case tonight. We are notifying the relevant parties that evidence must be preserved. Dr. Carter has been publicly accused repeatedly in ways that damaged her professional standing. The people who participated will now have to explain those accusations under oath." Under oath. 2 words. That was all it took. Ryan looked at me again, and this time his face wasn't cold or charming or wounded. It was afraid. I stepped closer to Brenda, not enough to threaten her, just enough that she had to look at me instead of the room. "You enjoyed saying it in public," I said quietly. So I thought public was the right place to begin correcting it. She stared at me like she didn't know who I was. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she had only ever known the woman who smiled through insults because making a scene felt beneath her. That woman had been useful to them. That woman was gone. Franklin cleared his throat. "Dr. Carter, perhaps we should discuss this privately." I looked at him then. The man who had said perception mattered. The man who had let gossip weigh more than my work. "You had months to discuss my reputation privately," I said. "Instead, you let it damage my career publicly." His face tightened. No one at the board table defended him. That mattered. People are brave in groups until the paperwork arrives. Brenda suddenly turned on Claire. "You're twisting this. Everyone knows Megan couldn't have children." Claire's expression did not move. "Then we'll ask Mrs. Lawson to identify the source of that claim during deposition." Brenda pointed at Ryan. "My son told me." Ashley made a sound, small and sharp. Ryan closed his eyes. And there it was. Not the full truth yet, but the door opening. Brenda had said it out loud in front of witnesses. "My son told me." I felt something loosen inside me. For years, I had carried the shame of a story I did not write. I had watched people pity Ryan, praise Ashley, comfort Brenda, and look at me like my empty house was proof of some failure hidden inside my body. But now the story had a source. Not me. Him. Claire slid a final sheet across the table to Franklin. "This includes a request that the hospital suspend any final administrative decisions related to surgical leadership until discovery is complete." Franklin looked at the paper like it might burn him. Across the ballroom, phones were no longer hidden. People were holding them low, pretending not to record. Ryan noticed too. "Everybody stop," he said. His voice cracked. That was when Brenda finally understood something was wrong. Not inconvenient. Wrong. She turned to him slowly. "Ryan," she said, "what did you do?" He did not answer, because the truth had already entered the room. And this time, it had been filed. The charity gala did not end after Claire closed the binder. It should have. That would have been cleaner. People should have returned to their auction baskets, their polite conversations, their little plates of beef tenderloin and crab cakes. The string quartet should have started playing again. Franklin Moore should have cleared his throat, said something about a misunderstanding, and everyone should have pretended they had not just watched a respected hospital surgeon drag a buried lie into the middle of a donor ballroom. But lies do not leave quietly once you unlock the door. They stumble. They bleed. They reach for anything they can grab. Ryan reached for Ashley. "Let's go," he said, putting one hand on her elbow. Ashley pulled away from him. "No," she whispered. "What medical documentation?" Ryan's eyes moved around the room, searching for an escape route. He had always been good at that. In our marriage, every hard question became a door he could walk through. Not this time. Brenda stepped toward him, her pearls moving against her throat with each sharp breath. "Ryan, answer her." It was almost satisfying, watching her demand the truth from the same man whose lies she had carried like scripture. Almost. But satisfaction is not the same as healing. I still felt the old wound under my ribs. Claire touched my arm gently. "We're done here," she said. And because I trusted her, I turned to leave. That was when Brenda called after me. You think this makes you look better? I stopped. The whole room seemed to hold its breath again. I looked over my shoulder. No, Brenda, I said. I think it makes me done. Then I walked out of the ballroom with Claire beside me and Dr. Samuel Reed falling into step behind us. Outside, the October air was cold enough to wake me up. The hospital parking lot stretched under yellow lights, cars shining with a thin layer of mist. For the first time all evening, my lungs felt like they belonged to me. Dr. Reed stopped near the curb. "Megan," he said, "I owe you an apology." I turned. He was 61, silver-haired, careful with his words, the kind of surgeon who could remove a tumor without making one unnecessary cut. For years, I had respected him more than almost anyone in that building. That made what came next hurt more. "I knew the board was listening to gossip," he said. "I argued against it, but I didn't push hard enough." I looked at him for a long second. "Why not?" He exhaled. "Because I thought competence would win." I gave a small, tired laugh. "So did I." His face tightened with shame. Claire stood quietly beside me, letting the silence do its work. Finally, Dr. Reed said, "I'll give a formal statement." "You already did," Claire said. "We may need more." "You'll have it." That was the first public crack in the hospital's defense. More came by morning. At 6:12 a.m., my phone began buzzing on the nightstand. Texts from nurses, voicemails from department staff. One message from Patricia Voss that simply said, "Dr. Carter, we need to talk." I did not answer Patricia. I forwarded it to Claire. By noon, 3 people had sent me videos from the gala. Brenda's voice was clear in every one of them. So was mine. So was Claire's. By 3 p.m., Franklin Moore sent a hospital-wide email about maintaining professionalism during periods of public misunderstanding. Public misunderstanding. That was his new name for slander with paperwork. Claire read it and laughed once. "Good," she said over the phone. "Now he's nervous enough to write stupid emails." The lawsuit was officially filed the next Monday in Fayette County Circuit Court. Claire included Brenda Lawson, Ryan Lawson, and Maple Ridge Regional Hospital as named defendants. Ashley was not listed at first. Claire told me not yet. "Let them speak," she said. "People reveal themselves when they think they've been spared." She was right again. 2 days after filing, Ashley texted me for the first time in nearly a year. "Megan, this has gone too far. You're hurting innocent people." I stared at the message in the hospital break room with a vending machine humming behind me. Innocent people. I thought of her sitting at my kitchen table, eating lo mein from a carton while I cried about Ryan refusing medical testing. I thought of her rubbing my back and saying, "You deserve better." I thought of her holding his baby in front of the same town that had decided I was defective. I typed 3 words. "Call my attorney." Then I blocked her. That felt less dramatic than people imagine. No thunder, no shaking hands. Just a button. Sometimes freedom looks like a gray screen and a name disappearing from it. The discovery process began in November. That was when Ryan's life became paperwork. Bank records, phone records, clinic records, text messages, emails, calendar entries, social media posts, anything connected to the false claims about my fertility and the professional damage that followed. Brenda's deposition happened first. Claire chose a small conference room at her office, with a glass pitcher of water on the table and a court reporter seated near the wall. Brenda arrived in a cream suit, carrying a leather purse and the righteous expression of a woman who still believed manners could outrank evidence. Ryan sat beside her attorney. He would not look at me. Claire began gently. "Mrs. Lawson, when did you first tell someone Dr. Carter was unable to have children?" Brenda folded her hands. "I never said it that way." Claire clicked her pen. "I'll repeat the question." For 2 hours, Brenda tried to wrap every cruel sentence in softer cloth. She had not spread rumors. She had expressed concern. She had not damaged my reputation. She had asked for prayer. She had not humiliated me. She had spoken from pain. Then Claire placed the first screenshot in front of her. Brenda's Facebook comment. "God restores what was taken." "Who took something from your son, Mrs. Lawson?" Brenda's lips pressed together. "I meant generally." Claire placed another screenshot down. This time, from a church group comment thread. "Some wounds come from women who choose careers over God's design." The room went very still. Claire leaned forward. "Were you referring to Dr. Carter?" Brenda looked at Ryan. Claire's voice sharpened. "Mrs. Lawson, your son cannot answer for you." Brenda looked back down. "I was speaking emotionally." "No," Claire said. "You were speaking publicly." That was when Brenda finally started to understand the difference. Emotion explains why you say something. It does not erase that you said it. Ryan's deposition was scheduled for the following week. He arrived 15 minutes late, wearing the Navy suit he used to wear to sales conferences, the one he believed made him look honest. I remembered steaming that suit before a company banquet in 2020. I remembered him kissing my forehead and telling me I was the best thing in his life. Memory can be cruel that way. It does not ask whether the person deserves to remain human in your mind. It simply reminds you that once, you loved them. Claire placed the Crestline records on the table, but did not open them yet. "Mr. Lawson," she said, "did you tell your mother that Dr. Carter was the reason you and she could not conceive?" Ryan swallowed. "My mother drew her own conclusions." Claire nodded. "Did you correct those conclusions?" He looked at his attorney. The attorney looked at the documents. Nobody saved him. Ryan's voice dropped. "No." Claire opened the file. "Did you know at the time that those conclusions were medically unsupported?" Ryan closed his eyes. And in that silence, 3 years of my humiliation finally found its owner. Ryan did not answer right away. The court reporter's fingers hovered above the little black machine. Claire sat perfectly still. My attorney had placed the question in the center of the table, and now everyone had to watch Ryan decide whether to touch it. "Did you know those conclusions were medically unsupported?" He rubbed both hands over his face. His attorney whispered, "Answer only what was asked." Ryan looked at the Crestline file. Then he said, "Yes." One word. That was all. But it landed harder than any speech could have. I felt it move through my body slowly, like anesthesia wearing off after surgery. Not pain exactly. Recognition. My mind went back through every dinner, every whispered conversation that stopped when I walked in, every pitying look from women who barely knew me, every board member who had treated my private life like a stain. Yes, he had known. Claire gave the court reporter a second to capture it. Then she asked, "When did you know?" Ryan swallowed. "May of 2021. Before your divorce from Dr. Carter?" "Yes." Before your mother began making public statements suggesting Dr. Carter was infertile? He looked down. "Yes." Before Ashley Miller became pregnant? His jaw tightened. "Yes." Something changed in the room when he said Ashley's name. Even his attorney shifted in his chair. Claire noticed. Claire noticed everything. She turned one page in her notes. "Did you ever tell Ms. Miller about your diagnosis?" Ryan's face hardened. "That has nothing to do with Megan." Claire did not blink. "Mr. Lawson, you used Miss Miller's pregnancy and the child's birth as part of a public narrative that Dr. Carter was the problem in your marriage. So yes, it does." His attorney objected for the record. Claire let him. Then she repeated the question. Ryan's voice came out low. "No. You did not tell Ashley Miller you had been diagnosed with severe male factor infertility?" "No." "Did you tell your mother?" "No." "Did you tell anyone?" He stared at the table. "No." There it was. The architecture of the lie. Ryan had not just let people blame me. He had built a whole new life on silence and let everyone else decorate it. Brenda, sitting against the far wall because she had insisted on attending, made a small sound. Not a sob, more like air leaving a tire. Ryan didn't look at her. Claire picked up another document. "This is a screenshot of your mother's post from August 14th. She wrote, 'My son finally has the family he always deserved.' Did you see this post?" "Yes." "Did you understand that people reading it would connect that statement to the rumors about Dr. Carter?" "I didn't think about it." I almost spoke. I didn't. Claire had told me before the deposition, do not rescue him from his own answers. So I sat there and let him drown in the shallow water he had dug himself. Claire leaned closer. "You didn't think about the woman whose career was damaged by your lie?" Ryan's eyes flicked toward me for half a second. I was embarrassed. That sentence was the closest thing to honesty he had given me in years. Embarrassed. Not sorry. Not guilty. Embarrassed. He had handed me his humiliation because mine was easier for him to watch. When the deposition ended, Ryan stood too fast and knocked his chair against the wall. Brenda rose after him, pale and unsteady, clutching her purse to her chest like it contained a life raft. "Ryan," she whispered. He kept walking. That was when I saw it clearly. Brenda had loved the story because it protected her son. Ryan had loved the story because it protected himself. Neither of them had ever loved the truth enough to ask what it was doing to me. 2 days later, Ashley unblocked herself from my life. She used a new number. The first message came at 11:36 p.m. "Megan, please. We need to talk woman to woman." I sent it to Claire. The second message came 3 minutes later. "You don't understand what this will do to the baby." The third? "Ryan is losing his mind. Brenda is blaming me. Please don't make this public." I stared at that one for a long time. Don't make this public. Those words would have been funny if they hadn't been so ugly. For 3 years, they had made my supposed failure public. My marriage, my body, my grief, my career. They had passed it around like a casserole at church. But now that the truth had a direction, suddenly everyone wanted privacy. I did not reply. The next morning, Claire called me while I was in the surgeon's lounge eating a protein bar that tasted like cardboard. "I need you to sit down," she said. I am sitting. "There's another party." I closed my eyes. "Tell me." An attorney representing a man named Ethan Brooks contacted my office. He owns Brooks Auto Repair in Fairview, about 30 miles west of Maple Ridge. He claims he had a relationship with Ashley Miller during the same period she was involved with Ryan. For a moment, the hospital around me went quiet. Not actually. A monitor still beeped somewhere down the hall. Someone laughed near the nurse's station. A cart rattled past the lounge door. But inside me, everything stopped. Claire continued. "He says Ashley told him the baby might be his. Then she cut him off when Ryan agreed to claim the child." I pressed the heel of my hand between my eyes. Why is he coming forward now? Because Ryan's medical records scared him. He wants a court-ordered DNA test before any custody or support arrangement becomes impossible to challenge. I thought of Ashley at my kitchen table. "You deserve better, Megan." I thought of Brenda holding that baby at the gala like proof. I thought of Ryan letting the whole town measure his manhood against a child who might not even be his. The cruelty of it stunned me all over again. Not because adults had affairs. Adults lied. Adults made selfish choices and called them complicated. But they had used a baby as a weapon. They had used a child who had done nothing wrong to prove a story that had never been true. "Do we get involved?" I asked. Claire paused. "Not unless they drag you in. But the timing matters. If Ethan files, Ryan's credibility gets worse. Ashley's too. She already texted me. Send everything." I did. "Good. Keep doing exactly that." Exactly that. No responding, no explaining, no begging anyone to remember I was human. Just evidence. By the end of December, Ethan Brooks filed his petition in Woodford County Family Court. He was 38, divorced, no children, with grease permanently darkened into the lines of his hands, and a lawyer who looked like she had never lost patience in her life. The petition was sealed because a child was involved. But Maple Ridge did not need details to start whispering. This time, the whispers did not point at me. They circled Ryan's house. Ashley stopped bringing the baby to church. Brenda stopped posting pictures. Ryan's truck disappeared from his driveway for 2 weeks, then reappeared with a cracked windshield and a missing side mirror. I did not ask what happened. I did not care. In January, Claire received an offer to settle from Brenda's attorney. It included money, a private apology, no admission of wrongdoing. Claire read it aloud to me over speakerphone, and when she got to that last line, I laughed. Not loudly, just once. "No," I said. Claire didn't sound surprised. "What do you want?" I looked across my kitchen at the navy binder sitting on the table. The same binder Claire had carried into the gala. Its silver tabs were bent now from use. "I want my name cleared, where they ruined it," I said. "Not in private, not in a letter that disappears into a drawer." Claire was quiet for a second. Then she said, "Then we keep going." The final hearing was set for March 3rd. and Brenda still had one more public sentence left in her. She should have kept it to herself. March 3rd arrived with hard rain and a sky the color of wet concrete. I remember that because I stood outside the courthouse for almost 4 minutes before going in, watching water run down the stone steps. My coat was buttoned wrong. I noticed it only when Claire reached over and fixed the top button like I was a child before a school picture. "You ready?" she asked. "No." She nodded. "Good. Ready people overperform." That was Claire's way of kindness. The hearing was not a trial in the dramatic television sense. No jury, no gasping audience, no one shouting objections every 30 seconds. Just a polished courtroom in Fayette County, Judge Marlene Whitaker on the bench, lawyers at 2 tables, and a row of people behind us who would come because public lies always attract spectators when the truth starts charging admission. Dr. Samuel Reed sat behind me. So did Theo Grant, the ER charge nurse who had heard Brenda speak about me near the maternity wing. 2 hospital board members were there, including Patricia Voss, who looked smaller without the conference table between us. Ryan sat at the opposite table in a gray suit, his hair freshly cut, his face drawn thin from months of consequences he had never expected to meet. Brenda sat behind him. She wore black. Not mourning black, performance black. A tailored dress, pearls, gloves folded in her lap. She kept her chin lifted, but every few seconds her eyes moved toward Ryan, like she was waiting for him to stand up and become the son she had been advertising for years. He never did. Ashley was not there at first. I noticed that immediately. Claire noticed too, but she said nothing. The hearing began at 9:02 a.m. Claire laid out the case with clean, merciless calm. She did not call Brenda evil. She did not call Ryan cruel. She did not say, "Ashley betrayed me." She let the documents do what people usually try to do with emotion. She showed the court the public comments, the statements, the videos from the gala, the emails from hospital leadership discussing reputation concerns and community perception. Then she placed the Crestline records into evidence under seal. Judge Whitaker read silently for a long time. No one moved. Paper can be louder than screaming when it is the right paper. Ryan's attorney argued that his diagnosis was private and humiliating, that it should not be used to punish him for a painful marital issue. Claire stood. "Your Honor, Dr. Carter did not disclose Mr. Lawson's condition to the public. Mr. Lawson and his mother publicly assigned a false condition to Dr. Carter. They did so repeatedly. They damaged her professional reputation. They contributed to a hospital board treating fiction as leadership risk. Privacy cannot be used as both a shield and a weapon." Judge Whitaker looked over her glasses at Ryan. "Mr. Lawson, did you allow others to believe Dr. Carter was the reason you and she did not conceive?" Ryan's throat moved. "Yes, Your Honor." "Did you know that was not supported by medical fact?" He closed his eyes. "Yes." Brenda made a soft sound behind him. For once, nobody looked to comfort her. Then Theo took the stand. He looked nervous in a shirt and tie. I had seen him hold pressure on a man's chest wound with both hands and speak calmly while blood ran down his wrists, but court made him sweat. Still, he told the truth. He said Brenda had spoken about me at the hospital more than once. He said she implied I was not maternal, too career-focused, and unable to give Ryan children. He said he saw people listen. He said he watched those comments travel. Claire asked, "Did those comments affect how hospital staff discussed Dr. Carter?" Theo looked at me once, then back at Claire. Yes. People stopped talking about whether she deserved the promotion and started talking about whether she was too damaged to lead. The words landed hard. Too damaged to lead. I kept my face still. That was a surgeon's trick. Sometimes the body wants to shake, but you give it a task. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. Do not blink too fast. Patricia Voss testified next. That was when the hospital began protecting itself. She admitted the board had discussed my divorce during promotion review. She admitted Brenda's comments had been known in the community. She admitted there was no formal complaint against my surgical work, no patient safety issue, no leadership failure. Claire asked, "So Dr. Carter lost professional opportunity partly because people believed a personal rumor?" Patricia hesitated. Judge Whitaker leaned forward. "Answer the question." Patricia's voice was almost gone. "Yes." There it was. Not an apology, but a fact. And sometimes a fact is the first brick pulled from a wall. Near 11:20, Brenda's attorney called her to speak. She walked to the front like she was entering church. At first, she cried quietly. She said she had loved her son. She said she had believed him. She said any mother would defend her child if she thought he had been hurt. For a moment, she almost sounded human. Then Claire asked one question. "Mrs. Lawson, after learning your son's diagnosis, did you contact Dr. Carter to apologize?" Brenda's face changed. The tears stopped. Her pride came back like a door slamming. "No," she said, "because this does not change everything. Some women simply aren't made for family." The courtroom froze. Even Ryan looked up. Claire turned toward me, but I was already standing. I had not planned to speak. Claire had warned me not to give speeches, not to let Brenda pull me into mud she understood better than I did. But this was not a speech. This was one sentence I had earned. Judge Whitaker looked at me. "Dr. Carter?" I stepped to the table, placed my hand on the navy binder, and looked at Brenda. "You're right, Brenda," I said calmly. "There really was someone in my marriage who couldn't have children. But his name was not Megan Carter." No one breathed. Ryan lowered his head. Brenda's mouth opened, but nothing came out. For 3 years, she had always had another sentence ready. Not that time. The document said otherwise. Then the courtroom doors opened. Ashley Miller stepped inside with a man I had never seen in person before. He wore a dark work jacket, damp from the rain, and stood beside an attorney holding a sealed family court order. Ethan Brooks had arrived. And Ryan's perfect family was about to become the next thing read out loud. Ethan Brooks did not look like a man who wanted attention. He looked like a man who had tried to stay out of a fire and finally realized the smoke had already followed him home. His hair was damp from the rain. His work jacket had a faint oil stain near the cuff. He kept both hands at his sides, but I noticed the way his fingers curled and uncurled, like he was forcing himself not to back out. Ashley stood beside him, pale and shaking. For 1 second, I forgot every cruel thing she had done and saw only the girl from organic chemistry who used to laugh so hard she cried into her notebook. Then she looked at Ryan, and the pity vanished. Because this was not a woman who had been trapped by one bad man. This was a woman who had helped build the trap. Judge Whitaker looked over the room. "Ms. Miller, this hearing does not concern your family court matter." Ashley's attorney stepped forward quickly. Your Honor, we understand. We are not asking this court to rule on paternity. But Mr. Lawson's counsel has repeatedly referenced the child and Ms. Miller's pregnancy in arguments about reputational context. We are here because there is now a related order from Woodford County requiring genetic testing. The words settled over the courtroom. Genetic testing. Ryan's head lifted slowly. Brenda whispered, "No." It was not a denial. It was a prayer. Ethan did not look at Brenda. He looked at the judge. "I didn't want to be part of this," he said. His voice was rough but steady. "But I was told the truth didn't matter because the Lawsons had already decided what the story was." Ashley closed her eyes. Ryan stood halfway. "This is private." The judge's face hardened. "Mr. Lawson, sit down." He sat. I had spent 3 years watching Ryan control rooms with charm, silence, and carefully timed injury. Watching a judge reduce him to a man in a chair should not have felt powerful. But it did. Not because I wanted him destroyed, because I wanted him contained. Claire leaned toward me and whispered, "Do not react." So I didn't. I watched. The family court order was not read in full. There was a child involved, and Judge Whitaker had enough decency to keep the baby from becoming courtroom theater. But the existence of the order was entered into the record as relevant to the broader pattern of public claims Ryan and Brenda had used against me. A baby they had paraded as proof. A diagnosis Ryan had hidden. A woman he had blamed. Another man now asking the court to confirm what everyone had been too busy celebrating to question. The lie was collapsing under its own weight. And the saddest part was how many people had helped carry it. Brenda gripped the back of the bench in front of her. Her pearls trembled against her throat. "Ashley," she said, barely above a whisper, "tell me this is a mistake." Ashley started crying then. Not pretty tears. Not soft tears. Panicked ones. "I was scared," she said. "Ryan said it didn't matter. He said no one would question it." Ryan turned toward her. "Don't." But Ashley was already unraveling. "You told me Megan would never fight back." There it was. Not infertility. Not love. Not family. Strategy. The room went quiet in a different way than before. This silence was colder. It was the sound of everyone understanding that my pain had not been accidental damage. It had been useful. Judge Whitaker called a recess at 11:47. I stepped into the hallway with Claire, and for a moment, the courthouse noise rushed around me. Shoes on tile, phones vibrating, lawyers murmuring near elevators, rain tapping against the tall windows. Then I saw my reflection in the glass. Black suit, tired eyes, hair pinned back too tightly, and beneath it all, a woman I almost recognized. Not the broken woman Maple Ridge had invented. Not the silent wife Ryan had depended on. Not the cautionary tale Brenda had polished for church. Me, Megan Carter, still standing. Dr. Reed came over slowly. "You shouldn't have had to do this." "No," I said. "I shouldn't have." He nodded, accepting the answer without trying to soften it. That mattered. When we went back inside, everything moved quickly. Ryan's attorney requested settlement discussions. Brenda's attorney did the same. The hospital's counsel, who had been quiet most of the morning, asked for permission to speak privately with Claire. People call it accountability when powerful people are cornered. Sometimes it is only math. They were calculating risk: court records, videos, depositions, medical documentation, board emails, witnesses, Ashley's statement, Ethan's petition. The numbers were no longer on their side. By 2:36 p.m., the framework was on paper. Brenda and Ryan would issue a public, written apology approved by my attorney. Not vague, not mistakes were made. Their statement had to name the lie. They had falsely implied I was infertile. They had repeated that claim publicly. They had allowed it to harm my reputation. The hospital agreed to conduct an independent review of the promotion process. They also agreed to remove every reference to personal instability from my leadership file and reopen the head of surgical services appointment. Financial terms were confidential, but I will say this. For the first time in years, the people who treated my dignity like a rumor had to put a dollar amount beside it. Brenda refused to sign at first. She sat with the pen in front of her, lips pressed tight, eyes red and furious. "I believed my son," she said. Claire looked at her. "Then your son owes you a separate apology. This one is for Dr. Carter." Brenda stared at me. I did not help her. I did not comfort her. I did not give her one graceful exit she had never offered me. Finally, her hand moved. Brenda Lawson signed her name with a shake in every letter. Ryan signed next. He looked smaller than I remembered. Ashley left before the paperwork was finished. Ethan followed his attorney out a minute later. He did not look triumphant. He looked tired. That was when I understood something important. Truth fixes records. It does not make the wreckage beautiful. By sunset, the rain had stopped. Claire and I walked out of the courthouse together, and she handed me the navy binder. "You should keep it," she said. I held it against my chest. For 3 years, that binder had been my shield. But standing on those wet courthouse steps, I realized I didn't want to carry it forever. "I'll keep it for now," I said, "but not on my nightstand anymore." Claire smiled. "That's a start." And it was. 7 minutes after Brenda humiliated me, the truth entered the room. 5 months later, it finally had signatures.